Gio Reyna made his first start in 6 months, Herc, on Sunday in Dortmund's 6-0 win over Borussia Mönchengladbach. Unfortunately, that's the good news. The bad news is that Reyna only lasted about 30 minutes before being subbed off with an apparent re-aggravation of the right hamstring injury that's kept him out since early September when he was actually hurt playing for the U.S. in World Cup qualifier. So obviously you see him leaving the field in tears there, and the alarm bells start to go off. Everybody on hashtag USMNT Twitter very, very worried over the weekend. Now, got some better news on Monday. Dortmund releasing this statement. Not as bad as originally thought. Team doctors actually believe Reyna could be back to training with the team within 14 days, Herc. We got 31 days till the all-or-nothing World Cup qualifying window for the United States. How worried do you think we should be about Reyna's participation in that window?
Well, the window per se, that Mexico game, not too worried if it's just 14 days. Theoretically, he could get a game or two with Borussia Dortmund's schedule under his belt.
No chance.
Let me finish. But given that the initial injury happened the 2nd of September of 2021, that's 172 days ago, Seb, I'm very worried. Not just this window, but I'm worried about the World Cup being in jeopardy for Gio Reyna. It's a World Cup year. It's 6 months, going on to 6 months, that this player has been missing due to a muscular injury. We're not talking about an ACL. There are players who come back from an ACL in about 5 to 6 months. I'm worried about him and him learning how to, one, listen to his body, and two, trust his body. These chronic injuries are very tricky. It doesn't matter how highly I think of Gio Reyna and his ceiling. If he can't get on the field and stay on the field, we should all be worried.
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely worried. I don't think I wouldn't be as optimistic as you, because 2 weeks is the best case scenario to return to training. You know a lot better than this, but returning to training doesn't mean you're match fit, right?
Correct.
Especially with the amount of time that he's had off. So maybe best case scenario, you could call him in, but would you really rush him back then? You got 3 weeks to get him, fit for that Mexico game. The Mexico game is the big one here, right?
And that's the first one.
Yeah, and so the idea of him starting in that match, I think, is overstated, right? Maybe you could rush him back and have him for 30 minutes, but if what you're saying is correct, that we should be careful, then that can't really be the idea either.
Well, that's why I said theoretically, if they say 14 days, you can get him back in that window. But given the circumstances, given the history, Seb, I don't know how you can realistically say this is a target date you should be aiming for.
Yeah, so is it Christian Pulisic territory yet? Remember, there was there was a stretch maybe 3-4 months ago where we were talking about, and you said World Cup, but maybe career with somebody like Gio Reyna, because this is obviously something that is now recurring for him.
Best case scenario, Seb, it's a situation. Do you remember when Thomas Tuchel pretty much pulled him around halftime when he was like, hey, this doesn't feel good, doesn't feel like it's right. And he pulled him, and he's like, he needs to learn how to trust his body, needs to learn how to go. Hopefully it's a case like that where it's a young player learning how to trust his body, learning how to go through injuries, and nothing much more serious than that.
If you look at Herc, like this season, which we thought was supposed to be the breakthrough for Reyna, I think it's also going to be a setback in those terms, right? He had 45 appearances a year ago. This was supposed to be that next step. 8 appearances so far this year.
Fastest player to get to 50
yeah.
games in the Bundesliga. Now.
Maybe the one thing is we say worry. The U.S. is accustomed to playing without Gio Reyna at this point, right? So, I mean, if we're really being honest about it, like they have gone through this entire World Cup qualification campaign without Gio Reyna. They're comfortable, and at that position, Herc, they're even more comfortable.
Yeah, let me just, before we end, one of the best players versus Mexico, Nations League, was Gio Reyna.